Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's your boy Frankenberry here, coming at you with the second installment of our Tippy Top 10 series here on the wide weird world of Frankenberry. Last time we looked at the top 10 albums of 1980, so naturally, this time we're going to focus on 1981. One thing that surprised me since starting this endeavor is just how often bands put out albums back then. It's funny looking back just how different the music industry is now compared to back then. Nowadays, there could be several years between albums, but back in the 70s and early 80s, bands put out a new record almost every year. That's evident in the fact that so many of the bands that were on our last list are also on this one. But before we get into the top 10 proper, let's take a look at some of the other great rock albums that came out in 81 that just didn't quite make the cut. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the top 10 albums of 1981. Kicking off the countdown at number 10 is Judas Priest. In our last episode, we talked about their landmark album British Steel. With that record, songs like Breaking the Law made Judas Priest a household name in America. And the follow-up album, Point of Entry, strengthened their hold over the Midwestern rock fans. With songs like Hot Rockin', On the Run, and the hit single Heading Out to the Highway, Priest edged out the competition to take the number 10 spot on this list. Judas Priest wasn't the only British rock band to put out a top 10 worthy album in 1981. Our selection for number 9 comes from Def Leppard. Released in July of 1981, Def Leppard's High and Dry was the natural evolution of what they began with On Through the Night. With great songs like the title track, Lady Strange, and On Through the Night, topped off with the massive hit Bringing on the Heartbreak, High and Dry solidified their grip on America and set them up to take over the world with their next release. Coming in at number 8, we have a series first, the first female-led group to make our list, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. While she may look like a hot version of the girl next door, there's a lot more than a pretty face to this rock and roll vixen. And when the band released their second album, I Love Rock and Roll, she set out to prove it. While the first album may have perked up the ears of American fans, their sophomore effort took rock radio by storm with the title track. And fans who went out and bought the record were treated to a full meal of rock goodness. With supporting tracks like Runaway and Crimson and Clover, it's easy to see why this album claims a spot on our list. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, a lot of the bands that made our list of the top 10 albums of 1980 make a return on the 81 list as well. The band that takes our number 7 spot is one of those bands. Topping our last list with Back in Black, the Australian Bad Boys make their return at number 8 this time around. While not nearly as impactful as Back in Black, For Those About to Rock is a rock classic in its own right. From the title track, to Spellbound, to Let's Get It Up, to Breaking the Rules, AC/DC's second album with Brian Johnson is a solid outing in its own right, cementing their spot on this list. At number 6, we have another returning artist from our last list, Van Halen. Last time around, we were talking about Women and Children First. This time around, we're talking about its follow-up. Released in April of 1981, Fair Warning is a rock and roll classic. Received generally stronger than its predecessor, Fair Warning was sort of a return to form for the party band from Pasadena. From the gritty Mean Street, to the poppy Hear About It Later, to the arena anthem Unchained, any 81 top 10 that doesn't include this rock classic is simply irrelevant. Coming in at number 5 is Motley Crue's debut album, Too Fast for Love. Motley is a band that's very close to my heart. All throughout the 80s, they were my favorite band, and I was fortunate enough that they were also my first concert at the ripe old age of 12. When Too Fast for Love hit the record store shelves in November of '81, it It was unlike anything else out at the time. They looked different, they sounded different, and it was evident that for this band, sex, drugs, and rock and roll wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a way of life. From lawsuits and arrests to drug overdoses and vehicular manslaughter charges, the Crue lived exactly as advertised. And the only thing more dangerous than the way that they lived was the way their music sounded. From the razor-sharp chug of Live Wire to the anthemic sing-along hook of the title track, to the screw-the-world attitude of Public Enemy #1, to the bluesy and sleazy piece of your action. Too Fast for Love is one of the best debut albums of the decade and is more than deserving of its place on this list. Coming in at number 4 is probably one of the most commercially successful albums of '81. While his first album may have put him on the map, Billy Squire's second album, Don't Say No, made him a household name. Squire's sophomore record rocketed up the charts, topping out at number 3 on the Billboard album chart and staying in the top 100 for over 2 years. For our next pick, it's yet another repeat offender, the Canadian kings of prog rock, Rush. If Geddy and the boys started to incorporate synthesizers and a little more radio-friendly sensibility with permanent waves, they jumped all the way in feet first with their next record. Coming in at number 3 is Moving Pictures. Released in February of 1981, Moving Pictures was yet a further evolution of the technically brilliant radio rock of Permanent Waves. It's got much that same feel, but with a more matured and exquisitely produced sound. The intro to the epic masterpiece Tom Sawyer may be one of the most recognizable intros in all of rock music. The song is a perfectly captured, sonically beautiful, and brilliantly crafted rock epic. And when you add songs like YYZ, Limelight, and Vital Signs to that, the sum total is both one of the greatest and best sounding albums in rock history. And when you step back and realize that all that sound is coming from only 3 guys, then recognize that those same 3 guys can almost perfectly recreate that sound live, well, that, my friends, is something akin to wizardry. Our next artist not only had an album on our last list, this one comes in at exactly the same place in the countdown. Coming in at number 2, it's Ozzy Osbourne's second solo album, Diary of a Madman. The only negative thing that I could even possibly say about this album is that it sadly marked the end of the life and career of arguably the greatest rock and roll guitarist to ever live, Randy Rhoads. However, we're not here to talk about Randy's untimely death, but to celebrate the work that he left behind. And without a doubt, Diary of a Madman contains some of Randy's best work. Written and recorded mostly alongside the songs on Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman is just exactly what a sophomore album should be, more of what fans loved about the first album. This album succeeds in spades on that front. It feels a lot like the first album, while stretching out in some ways. From the thunderous opening of Over the Mountain, to the haunting title track, to the soaring Flying High Again, to the dark and ominous Believer, this album is without a doubt one of the Madman's very best. Well, here we are at number 1. Our next artist made the last list with their album Departure, but this time around, they're taking the very top spot with its follow-up. Our Tippy Top 10 number 1 album is Journey's Escape. When it comes to early 80s pop-infused arena rock, it doesn't get much bigger than Journey, especially in the Escape era. Between vocalist Steve Perry, guitarist Neil Schon, and keyboardist Jonathan Cain, Journey wrote some of the best pop rock songs in music history on this album. Don't Stop Believing, Stone in Love, Who's Crying Now, Open Arms. These songs are burned into the hearts and imprinted on the souls of rock and roll fans the world over. Escape is not only a masterclass in songwriting, but also in musical virtuosity. From the soulful and seemingly boundless range of Steve Perry's voice, the technical prowess of Neil Sean's guitar alchemy. Nobody could ever write this band off as just some bubblegum pop outfit. These guys are masters of their craft, more than earning of their spot at the top of this countdown. Well, there you have it, folks. Our Tippy Top 10 Best Albums of 1981. Make sure to drop a comment and let us know how you would list the top 10 albums of 81. Also, let me know what other kinds of videos you'd like to see on the channel. And hey, give us a like and a sub if you wouldn't mind. It's a small thing for you, but a big thing for our channel. I'll see you guys again real soon with another countdown. But until then, y'all keep it between the ditches now, you heard? And always remember, life is short. Don't forget to enjoy it.